Dumb Husky and his white cat Shizun. Chapter 133. Shizun has the purest mind. At that time, Moran was drinking pear blossom white when he suddenly felt something touching his leg. He subconsciously wanted to move away, but before he could move, the feeling of being touched became more obvious. It was as if something had brushed past him. He was slightly startled and did not understand what had happened. It was only when Shimei sat up straight again and Moran looked at that peerlessly handsome face that was dyed red with his pursed lips and lowered his eyebrows, as if he had something on his mind, only then did Moran realize just now, that was cough, cough, cough. Moran immediately choked. In his heart, Shimei had always been like the white snow in spring, the new moon by the willow branches. Someone he could only look at from afar and cannot touch at all. Although he cherished Shimei so much that at one time, he even hated that he could not die for him, he rarely had any romantic thoughts related to him, let alone putting them into action. But such a pure and flawless person, could it be that just now he was touching him? This thought really shocked Moran because it was too outrageous. He shook the thought out of his head by physically shaking it like a rattle drum. Chu Wanning saw this and frowned. "What's wrong with you?" "Nothing." And he was touching him in front of Shizun. How was this possible? This did not seem like something Shimei would do. Moran's expression became more complicated. Rather than saying that he was pleasantly surprised, it was better to say that he was frightened. He calmed down for a long time before he heard Shimei's gentle voice, "These chopsticks are dirty. Waiter, please go and change them." The waiter came and left as soon as he was called. Moran sympathetically turned his head and saw Shimei's indifferent face. That person's eyes were still calm and his expression was gentle. It was as if the blush and shyness that Moran saw just now was just an illusion. Feeling that someone was looking at him, Shimei raised his peach blossom eyes a few inches and with a faint smile, his gaze fell on Moran. "What's wrong?" "Nothing, nothing." Shimei then said, "The chopsticks fell in the wrong place, right next to your feet." "Oh." Moran heaved a sigh of relief as his heart calmed down. Sure enough, he was thinking too much. He was just about to say a few words to Shimei to ease the atmosphere when he saw that Shimei had already turned his face away and was about to get a spoon to ladle some soup. Moran felt guilty about his earlier thoughts and said, "Let me help you scoop some soup." "No need, I can do it myself." As he spoke, he rolled up his sleeves and calmly scooped a bowl of san xian soup for himself. The soup was placed by Moran near Chu Wanning and far away from Shimei. Originally, he didn't notice it while he was sitting, but now that he stood up to scoop the soup, the distance between was particularly obvious. He almost had to stretch his arm to reach the soup from the other end of the table. 1 spoonful, 2 spoonfuls, slowly he moved his arms. Moran. Shimei met his uneasy gaze and didn't say anything. He just smiled slightly and continued to scoop soup for himself. Moran felt a bit awkward. When Shimei was done, he asked Chu Wanning if he wanted some. Chu Wanning said no, so he moved the soup to the middle of the table. It wasn't too close to anyone, but it wasn't too far away either. It was just right. His teacher and his favorite person. He shouldn't have been biased in the first place. During the meal, Shimei suddenly said, "Aran, you've really become a lot more mature. You're no longer a disciple who always made Shizun angry. So, there's something that I want to tell you. Since all three of us are here today, I want to apologize to Shizun as well." Moran saw that he was serious and couldn't help but ask, "What is it? Do you remember the first time I made wontons and gave them to you?" Shimei said, "That bowl of wontons wasn't made by me. I've never made wontons." "That was..." Moran laughed, "I thought it was something else." "So, it was this. I've known for a long time." "Ah, you've known for a long time." Shimei was slightly stunned. He opened his pretty eyes wide and turned to look at Chu Wanning, who was drinking his wine. Did Shizun tell you? No, I came to know about it before I went to the netherworld. Moran was about to go into detail when Chu Wanning suddenly put down his wine cup. He coughed lightly and glanced at him. His expression was solemn and cold. Moran knew that he was thin-skinned and naturally didn't want others to know about his softness. So, he just said to Shimei, anyways, I already understood the cause and effect of this matter 5 years ago. It would be too long to explain, so there's no need to further talk about it. Shimei nodded, that's fine too. He then said to Chu Wanning, Shizun, at that time you weren't willing to give the wontons to Moran and let me do it for him. At first, I didn't think it was a big deal. But then I saw that the misunderstanding between the two of you was getting deeper and I felt very apologetic. I wanted to find a time to explain it to Moran myself, but when the words came to my mouth, I couldn't. Actually, I was a little selfish at that time. At Shi Sheng Peak, other than young master, Moran was my only close friend. I was afraid that he would be unhappy with me once he learned that truth, so. It's fine. I didn't want you to tell him about it in the first place. You didn't do anything wrong. Still, I felt bad about it. It seemed as if I stole the credit for myself. Shizun, I'm sorry. As he said this, Shimei lowered his eyes. After a while, he said, Aran, I would like to apologize to you, too. Moran had never blamed Shimei for this. Even though his initial good intentions towards Shimei were all caused by Chu Wanning, Shimei's warmth towards him was real. Moreover, Shimei was only following Chu Wanning's instructions. He didn't actually intend to take credit for it. Moran hurriedly said, No, please don't mind this. How long has it been? He looked at Shimei's face under the lantern light. He had never seen this face in his previous life. Because in his previous life, Shimei had already died at this time. His youth had withered away in the wind before he had reached his prime. This had become his lifelong pain. He didn't even have the chance to know that Shimei would look like this when he was 24 years old. He was tall, his face was as white as jade, and his peach blossom eyes were sparkling like spring water. He looked so gentle that he was afraid that even when he was angry, he would still look soft. His tightly clenched and wrinkled heart slowly relaxed. He sighed inwardly and suddenly felt very happy. His heart felt very warm and at ease. Although he felt that compared to the 19-year-old Shimei, the 24-year-old Shimei was a bit unfamiliar to him and he didn't feel as close to him as before. Perhaps it was because of this unfamiliarity that he even had the absurd thought that Shimei would take the initiative to touch his calf. However, Moran felt that after some time, he would slowly get used to it. As for matters of relationships, he didn't want to force it anymore. He would just let nature take its course. He had been wandering around for 5 years and it was hard to find any trace of him. During this time, he had encountered several dangers. He didn't know if these were the deliberate actions of the fake Gushin or not. The fact remained that the mastermind behind the scenes hadn't come out yet, nor had been caught. Moran felt that the days ahead wouldn't be peaceful, so he couldn't let his guard down. Even if he had to sacrifice his own life, he would protect the two people by his side for the rest of his life. Moran temporarily let go of his inner demon. However, he didn't know that his inner demon was never idle. After letting him go, it went to another person. Perhaps it was because he had eaten too much that night, but Chu Wanning was very sleepy after returning home. He originally wanted to draw the blueprint of the new golem overnight, but he was only halfway done when he started yawning. He tried to stay awake for a while, but couldn't. Finally, he blinked his eyes sleepily and fell asleep on his bed without even changing his clothes. He was muddle-headed in his sleep and dreamt of many random things. First, it was the size ranking of the young heroes in the cultivation world. Then, it was the vigorous and strong body he saw in the Meatbun Springs. Under the dim candlelight, Chu Wanning frowned slightly. He seemed to want to get rid of this shameful dream, but he couldn't help it and gradually fell deeper into it. Then, he had the same dream as before. It was still Shisheng Peak, but the Wushan Hall looked different and the people around were not familiar to him. A completely mature Mo Weiyu pinched his chin. His eyes were vicious and mocking as he said these filthy words to him, "Let me do it once and I'll agree to your conditions." This Mo Weiyu was different from the Mo Ran he knew. He had a crazed expression and his handsome face was very pale. His skin wasn't the wheat-colored tone he saw before. "Kneel down by yourself, and lick me." These messy sentences came intermittently from the depths of the nightmare. It was as if something in his brain was about to shatter, break free of its shackles and pounce on Chu Wanning. He felt a chill run down his spine, but he was also strangely excited. In his dream, he saw Mo Ran approaching him and tearing his clothes. The sound of clothes tearing had never been so clear. Then, the dream suddenly turned black, as if he had sunk into a swamp. Just like the countless times before, the dream was cut off here. If it was before, he would sleep peacefully after the dream was cut off and there would be no more disturbances for the night. But today, for some reason, after the dream ended, there was a faint light in front of his eyes. Chu Wanning wanted to see clearly what was in front of him, but the new dream was very blurry, as if there was a layer of water vapor in between. He couldn't see his surroundings clearly. He only felt that he was lying in a large patch of scarlet. He couldn't see clearly, but his sense of smell and touch gradually became clearer as the dream unfolded. He even became more sensitive. He suddenly felt a burst of indescribable passion and heat. He saw a strong and sturdy body swaying in front of him, pressing down on him. Chu Wanning was shocked. He instinctively wanted to struggle, but his body didn't seem to belong to him, but to the him in the dream. He felt that he couldn't stop trembling. He could hear the man's heavy breathing, the hot air blowing next to his ear. His lips touched his earlobe from time to time, but he didn't kiss him, nor did he take it in. He turned his head to the side. Underneath him was a large, soft bed. As the two of them moved, it creaked and shook. He could even smell the wild scent of a beast's fur. The bed seemed to be covered with beast skin. He tried to reach out and grab the mattress as he floated, but he didn't have the strength. That man was so fierce, so hard, as if he wanted to tear his body apart. He heard his own throat overflow with a hoarse and muddy groan. He shook his head in despair and tried to struggle to break free, but that man's strength was so great, as if he could shatter his bones in his hands. Chu Wanning felt his scalp go numb. His whole body couldn't help but tremble violently. Maybe it was because the dream was too realistic and he was too tired. The next day, Chu Wanning didn't wake up until noon. After he woke up, he laid on the bed and was in a daze for a long time. He tilted his head. He seemed to be able to smell the scent of the animal skin in the dream, which brought with it the sweetness of the wild. But when he blinked, he was still lying on the cold and dark red sandalwood bed in the Red Lotus Pavilion. Everything was fine and there was nothing out of place. Except, Chu Wanning froze. He slowly lowered his eyes and looked down at his own body. Due to his mental cultivation method, he had been lacking of carnal desires. Elder Yu Heng, who rarely had any physical reaction for many years, found that he actually shamefully had an erection, in the morning. Oh no! Could it be that all his years of his cultivation had gone to the dogs? And those dreams yesterday, what were they? How could he dream of such a filthy scene? How could this be? Was it because he saw Mo Ran's body at Meatbun Springs and accidentally read the word absolute unit on that shameless ranking list? Chu Wanning's face darkened. He buried his face in his hands and rubbed it hard. When he looked up again, it was still dark. What was wrong with him? He pursed his lips. He wanted to soak himself in the cold lotus pond to cool down the flames in his heart. But before his feet touched the ground, he felt the barrier of the Red Lotus Pavilion fluctuate. Someone came in. Chu Wanning's expression immediately changed. He quickly pulled the blanket and covered the lower part of his body. That person's footsteps were also fast. It was likely that he had used Qinggong to come here. Then, he heard 2 knocks coming from the door. "Shizun, are you awake?" It was the same voice as the man in the dream. But in the dream, the voice was deeper and heavier, as if it was soaked with endless fervor and passion. However, the voice outside the door was gentle and respectful. It even carried a bit of worry. It was probably because Chu Wanning still hadn't woken up yet, despite the lateness of the hours, that the person behind the door was a bit anxious. Chu Wanning leaned against the bed and hugged the blanket. Hearing this voice, the wall between the dream and reality seemed to collapse. The lingering sentiments and intense emotions were all illuminated by the voice outside. As a result, his emotions surged, and it was even harder to calm down. He was just about to lie down and pretend to be asleep when he suddenly heard Mo Ran say from outside, "Shizun, are you there? Can you please let me come in? Let me come in." It was obviously an ordinary and simple phrase, but it made Chu Wanning think of the man in the dream lying on top of him. His lips moved, and the masculine heat almost burned him. That person panted and said, "Relax, I'm coming in." Chu Wanning's face suddenly flushed red. He sat on the bed in a daze. His clothes were disheveled and his heart was raging. His eyes seemed to be filled with hatred and unwillingness, but that hatred and unwillingness was like the gravel on the shore of a shallow beach. In the cold of winter, it was cold and hard, and people didn't dare to look at it directly. But when the spring water melted and the tide flowed, these sharp teeth would be submerged in the soft and rippling waves, and there would be no trace of viciousness in them at all. It was rare for him to be so embarrassed and helpless, and he had almost never felt such strong desire. He stayed where he was until Mo Ran pushed open the door and came in. Then he suddenly reacted. He wanted to pretend to be asleep, but it was too late. As a result, when Mo Ran came in, he saw Chu Wanning sitting on the bed. His black hair spread all over his body, making his face look like a flowing lake under the sunlight. When he raised his eyes to stare at him, it was like a frost blade that had just been drawn, and a few inches of cold light flowed out from the scabbard. However, the corners of his eyes were thin red, so the cold light was tinged with charm and gentleness. His hatred was entangled with humiliation, as if someone had just tortured him and done something unspeakable to him. His eyes were filled with stubbornness and wetness. Mo Ran looked at him silently. This man was like a tender bud that grew out of a thicket of thorns, causing him to suddenly slow down his breathing. He felt as if a huge rock had fallen into his chest, setting off a huge wave that covered the sky and flooded the earth. End chapter. Dumb Husky and his white cat Shizun. Chapter 134. Shizun sure can eat. Mo Ran did not speak. After a long while, the jut on his throat moved slightly. It was almost as if he was drowning in the waves of desire, trying to hold onto a piece of driftwood that would not let him drown. He stammered under his breath, "Respect him, respect and cherish him. Respect as in respect and cherish, cherish as in respect and cherish. Do not sully him, do not hurt him, do not have any unnecessary feelings, and even more so, do not do the same foolish and outrageous things that humiliated Shizun in his previous life." In the boiling lava that is his heart, Mo Ran repeated these words 4 or 5 times. Only then did he manage to regain his composure and calmly walk into the room. He smiled and greeted Chu Wanning. "Shizun, so you were inside, why didn't you say something?" "I just woke up," Chu Wanning said dryly. As in really dry. His throat was dry as well as his desires. As in if he accidentally lit a single spark, then he might be able to set a whole prairie on fire. Mo Ran was holding a 5-layer bamboo food box in his hands. It looked heavy. He wanted to put it on the table, but when he glanced at it, he saw that the table was full of files, drills, tenons and nails, as well as a mess of blueprints. He had no choice but to carry the food box and walk to Chu Wanning's bedside. Chu Wanning seemed to be grumpier than usual when he woke up. When he looked at him, he was clearly anxious. He frowned and said, "What are you doing?" Shizun woke up late. There was no more food at Menpo Hall at this time. Since I had nothing much to do, I cooked something and decided to accompany Shizun for breakfast this morning. As he said this, he opened the food box and laid it out one by one. At the top was a plate of stir-fried wild mushrooms, followed by a plate of tender lettuce, followed by silver thread rolls and honey sweet lotus root. At the bottom were 2 bowls of sparkling white rice and a bowl of winter bamboo and ham soup. 2 bowls of white rice. Chu Wanning was a bit speechless. So, did it mean that Mo Ran thinks he has such a big appetite? The table is a bit messy. Does Shizun want to eat on the bed, or should I clean up the table and bring the dishes over? Of course, Chu Wanning did not like to eat on the bed, but at this time, the sign of desire in his lower body had not yet disappeared. It was only being covered by the quilt. He hesitated for a moment, weighing matters between his bearing and mortification, and resolutely chose the latter. There are too many things on the table. It will take a long time to pack them up, so let's eat here. Mo Ran smiled and nodded. All right. It had to be said that Mo Ran's culinary skills were quite good. The dishes he made 5 years ago were already very tasty. 5 years later, it was even harder for ordinary cooks to compare with. Mo Ran knew that he didn't like porridge in the morning. The mushroom he chose were grass mushroom. The silver thread rolls didn't have soy sauce but have sweet potatoes instead. The winter bamboo shoots were all tender, the ham was thin and had a nice amount of fat, its red and white color looked like the dusky clouds by the horizon. Mo Ran had never asked about his taste, but everything was just according to his liking, as if they had lived together for many years. Chu Wanning was enjoying his meal. Although his posture was calm, his chopsticks did not stop for a moment. When he finished the last mouthful of soup, he looked up and saw Mo Ran sitting by the bed, 1 foot on the wooden frame of the chair next to him. One hand was supporting his cheek, looking at him with an indulgent smile. What's wrong? Chu Wanning subconsciously took out a handkerchief to wipe his mouth. Is there something on my face? No. Mo Ran said, it's just that seeing Shizun is enjoying his meal, makes me feel happy. Chu Wanning was a bit uncomfortable, so he said lightly, the food you cooked is delicious but there was just a bit too much rice. Next time, 1 bowl is enough. Mo Ran seemed to want to say something, but in the end, he restrained himself. He grinned, revealing a row of neat white teeth. Shizun could be so silly sometimes. When it comes to important matters, he was careful and meticulous, but when it comes to mundane matters, he was inexplicably callous. He didn't even notice that there were 2 pairs of chopsticks under the food box. He actually ate the amount of food for 2 people and yet only noticed that it's just the amount of rice that he found to be a bit much. The more Mo Ran thought about it, the more amused he became. He couldn't help but lightly touch his forehead, his eyelashes fluttering. What are you laughing about? Nothing, nothing. Mo Ran didn't point anything out in fear of unintentionally slighting his Shizun. Dignity was very important to his Shizun. Of course, he couldn't embarrass him, so he changed the topic. Shizun, I suddenly remembered something I forgot to tell you yesterday. What is it? On my way back, I heard that Master Huizhui left the day before you came out of seclusion. That's right. So, you didn't see him when you woke up? No. Mo Ran sighed, then this matter is not because Shizun was being disrespectful. Previously, I heard some people talking of how Shizun didn't understand etiquette. Master Huizhui spent 5 years of effort to resurrect Shizun's soul, but when he woke up, he didn't even get to thank him. But then Master Huizhui left on his own accord. It's not as if Shizun could run to Wuobei Temple the moment he woke up and kneel there in gratitude. These gossiping people are really annoying. Since I am now clear on the matter, I'll ask uncle to mention it at tomorrow's morning assembly. Chu Wanning suddenly said, there's no need. Why? The relation between the master and I have been not good for a long time, Chu Wanning said. Even if he was still here when I woke up, I wouldn't have thanked him. Mo Ran was stunned. Why is that? I know that Shizun was expelled from the temple all those years ago and has long lost the ties of master and disciple with Master Huizhui. But he came to help Shizun when he was in need, isn't that? Before he could finish, Chu Wanning interrupted him. The matter between him and I is not something that can be easily explained, and I'm not really keen to talk about it. If others say that I am ungrateful, cold-blooded, and heartless, then let them be. It's obviously the truth. Mo Ran was anxious. How is that the truth? You're obviously not that kind of person. Chu Wanning suddenly raised his head, and his expression suddenly became cold, blood flowing as if a dragon that has been touched on its inverse scale. Mo Ran, he suddenly said, how much do you know about my matters? He looked into Chu Wanning's bright eyes, which were piercingly cold. Chu Wanning is a man who never lets his guard down, someone who always kept people at a distance. For a moment, he had the urge to throw caution to the winds and say, I know you. I know a lot of things about you. I understand. Even if there are some things about your past that I didn't know, I'm willing to listen if you are willing to talk and share the burden with me. Don't keep everything hidden and lock inside your heart. Don't always hide within layers and layers of barriers. Don't you get tired of always being uneasy? However, he was not in the position to say this to him. He is nothing but his disciple. He couldn't ask rashly or be disobedient. In the end, Mo Ran didn't say anything. After a long moment of silence, Chu Wanning's body, which was as taut as a bowstring, finally relaxed bit by bit. He seemed to be somewhat tired as he sighed and said, people are not sages, and before the will of heaven, we are even weaker. Some things can't be changed just because we want to. All right, don't bring up the matter of Master Huizhui to me anymore. You can leave. I want to change my clothes. Yes. Mo Ran lowered his head, silently tidying up the food boxes. When he walked to the door, he suddenly said, Shizun, you're not angry with me, right? Chu Wanning glared at him. Why would I be angry with you? Mo Ran smiled. That's good, that's good. Then can I still come tomorrow? Up to you. Then after a short pause, he suddenly thought of something, and added, in the future, don't say let me come in to me. Mo Ran stared blankly. Why? You're going to come in anyway. What the use of saying that phrase to me? Chu Wanning was getting worked up again. He didn't know if he was angry at Mo Ran's untimely bout of innocence or his inexplicably blushing face. After Mo Ran left the room in confusion, Chu Wanning got out of bed. He was too lazy to put on his shoes, so he walked barefoot to the bookcase, taking out a roll of bamboo scroll. With a whoosh, he unfolded the bamboo scroll and stared at the words on them. His expression was dark and he was speechless for a long time. This bamboo scroll was left by Huizhui on his pillow before he left. He had cast a secret spell so that only Chu Wanning alone could open it. The calligraphy written on the slip was neat, and it said, to young Master Chu. His former teacher referred to him as young Master Chu. It was truly absurd. The contents of the letter were neither long nor short. It talked about some things that Chu Wanning needed to pay attention to after he woke up, and then spent more than half of the letter asking him to do something. Master Huizhui asked him to meet him at Mount Longxiu near Wuobei Temple after he recovered his energy. The words in the letter were sincere, earnest, saying that he was already old and felt that he didn't have much time left. When he thought of some past events, he felt tormented and guilty. Before this old monk passes away, I hope to have a talk with you. You still carry that old injury. I heard that because of this injury, you have to go into seclusion for 10 days every 7 years. This old monk truly felt remorseful. If you are willing to come to Mount Longxiu, I can set up an array to heal you. However, the spell is very dangerous. You need to bring along a disciple of both wood and fire essence to stabilize the array. Old injury. Mount Longxiu. Chu Wanning frowned, and his fingers almost sunk into his palms. How could he be healed? The things that were destroyed, the things that were lost, how could they be restored in those 164 days on Mount Longxiu? Even if Wei Zhui had the ability to could reach up to the heavens, would he be able to fill up this deep scars? He suddenly opened his eyes, and a golden light shone from his palms. The sturdy bamboo scroll was instantly crushed into powder in his fingers, disappearing into thin air. He would never step into Wuobei Temple again in this lifetime. He would never call Hui Zhui master again. In the blink of an eye, 4 days had passed since Chu Wanning came out of seclusion. On this day, Xue Zhenyang called him to Loyalty Hall and handed him a letter of commission. When he opened it, there were only a few simple sentences. Chu Wanning lifted his gaze and said, "Are you sure you're giving me the right thing?" "What?" Xue Zhenyang took the letter and read it again. He then said, "There's no mistake. This is for you." Chu Wanning narrowed his eyes. "It says to help the villagers of Yuliang village with rice harvesting. Don't tell me you don't know how to do it." Xue Zhenyang widened his eyes. "You really don't know how to do it?" Chu Wanning was a little embarrassed by the question, so he bristled. "Isn't there anything more normal? Something like exorcising evil spirits or something like that?" Xue Zhenyang said, "It's been quite peaceful recently. There really aren't much malevolent spirits roaming around. Anyways, Ran Air is going with you. At most, you can just sit and rest while he does the hard work. He's a young man, it shouldn't be a big deal for him to help with rice harvesting." Chu Wanning's pitch-black brows were deeply furrowed. Since when did Shi Shengpeak take on such trivial matters? It's always been done. In Vuchame Town, when old lady Wang's cat climbed up a tree and couldn't get down, it was always Shi Mei who carried it down. It's just that there were more troublesome matters in the past, so I didn't bother you with the simple ones. Xue Zhenyang said, "Didn't you just wake up recently?" "Originally, I wanted to ask someone else to do it, but I felt that you couldn't stay idle. Then I don't want to harvest rice." Chu Wanning changed his tone so it couldn't be said that he admitted that he didn't know how to harvest rice. Xue Zhenyang said, "I told you to ask Ran Air to help you. Just take it as if you're just going out for a relaxing walk. Can't I just take a relaxing walk without accepting this task?" "That's true." Xue Zhenyang scratched his head. "But Yuliang village is close to Kaidi town. Ran Air was the one who fixed the barrier there, but he's not yet as good as you. Why don't you go and check it out, see if the barrier needs to be reinforced?" Chu Wanning finally felt the need to go after hearing these words. He didn't say anything else and took the commission letter. He turned around and left Loyalty Hall. End chapter. Dumb Husky and his white cat Shizun. Chapter 135. Shizun learned sneakily. Yuliang village was a very small village. The people living in the village were mostly elderly. There weren't many young people, so every year during the busy harvest season, cultivators from Shi Shengpeak is being asked to help out. This kind of request that had nothing to do with cultivation would definitely not be accepted by other cultivation sects. However, Xue Zhenyang and his elder brother started from scratch and had their share of hardships in life. It was said that they grew up eating *100 family meals. Therefore, not only would he not refuse this kind of request, he also would take it very seriously. He would ensure to send disciples who would accomplish this task diligently. Note, *100 family meals It refers to the practice of a neighborhood/village of feeding a child who have no caretakers for various reasons, so they would stay in the village. The village was not far from the Shisheng Peak, but it was not close either. It would be too troublesome to walk there, but it would be too pretentious to take a carriage. Therefore, Xue Zhenyang prepared 2 good horses for them. Chu Wanning went down to the mountain gate and saw Mo Ran standing under a tall maple tree. It was already late autumn, and the forest was gradually dyed red. The maple leaves were red, and when the wind blew, the dried leaves were as bright as a brocade, like red carps jumping around. Mo Ran was holding the reins of a black horse, and the white horse was rubbing against his cheek intimately. He was holding a handful of clover and playing with them. When he heard footsteps, he turned around and saw a few red leaves falling about. Mo Ran raised his head and smiled amidst the backdrop of the falling leaves. Shizun. Chu Wanning's footsteps slowed down and finally stopped at the last few steps. The sun shone through the lush leaves and soaked the mossy stone steps. He looked at the man not far away. Perhaps because he had to do farm work, Mo Ran did not wear the disciple uniform of Shisheng Peak today, nor did he wear the white robes that he had wear when he came back. He wore a black cloth robe with gauntlet around his wrist. It was a very simple uniform, but it accentuated his thin waist, his long legs and his wide shoulders. He indeed has an excellent figure, especially around the chest. Because the collar of the cloth robe was low, his tight chest muscles were slightly visible. His honey-colored skin rose and fell with his breathing. If Xuemeng's outfit with shining silver armor could be called showy like a peacock spreading its tail feather, then Mo Ran's current appearance could be called sultry, an innocent type of sultry. It was a look that was coquettish without meaning to be, as if he was trying to say, "I am an honest man. I don't know how to flirt. I don't know how to do anything other than work hard." Chu Wanning looked at him a few times and said, "Mo Ran. What's wrong, Shizun?" The sturdy man asked with a smile. Chu Wanning was expressionless when he replied, "Your collar is open. Aren't you feeling cold?" Mo Ran was slightly startled, but immediately thought that Shizun was concerned about him and felt very happy. He put the clover back into the horse straw basket, brushed his hands and ran up the stone steps. He stood tall and handsome in front of Chu Wanning. And before Chu Wanning could react, Mo Ran grabbed his wrist. "I'm not cold. I've been busy all morning. In fact, I feel rather hot." He smiled without any reservation. He took Chu Wanning's hand and pressed it on his own rising and falling chest. "Look, Shizun, am I right?" He was indeed hot. The young man's chest was very warm, accompanied by the sound of his heartbeat and his eyes that were as bright as the stars. Chu Wanning felt a tingling sensation at the back of his hand and hurriedly shook of the hand holding his wrist, his expression dark. "What are you talking about? Ah! Am I sweating?" Mo Ran misunderstood. He now thought that Chu Wanning didn't like men. After all, the entanglement between him and Chu Wanning in his previous life was all because of his unreasonable coercion. He didn't think that Chu Wanning would have any interest in him. Thus, he only thought that Master's displeasure was because he couldn't stand the heat on his body. Thinking about how particular Chu Wanning was with cleanliness and dislike of touching other people, Mo Ran couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. He scratched his head and said, "I was being thoughtless." If he had looked carefully, he would have seen that Chu Wanning's elegant neck was crimson red. Under his cold and aloof eyelashes, there was a glimmer of affection. It's a pity that he did not realize it in that moment. Chu Wanning would not give him the chance to notice it again. His clean white shoe stepped on the slippery green stone as walked straight to the black horse. He flipped over and mounted the horse. His movements were natural and smooth. Under the sunlight that blotted out the sky and the red leaves that covered the mountains and plains, he was dressed in white and riding on a tall black horse. He turned his head and looked down at his disciple who was standing on the ground. His icy jade-like face was very proud. He was still that sharp elder Yu Hung, so elegant that he couldn't be more handsome. I'm going. Hurry up and follow me. After declaring this, his slender legs clamped tightly around the horse's belly, riding the red dust as he spurred the horse and left. Moran stood stunned in the same place. After a while, he picked up the bamboo basket of clover and tied it to the back of the white horse's saddle. He also jumped onto the horse. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. That black horse was supposed to be mine. Why is Shizun riding on it? Shizun. Wait for me. The two of them galloped, and in less than an hour, they arrived at Yuliang village. There were dozens of acres of rice paddy fields outside the village. Golden grains rolled and waved around. There were about 30 farmers working in the fields. Because there weren't many people in the village, they were all working the field no matter if they were young or old. They were all hunched over with their sleeves rolled up and swung their sickles. Large beads of sweat dripped down their faces. It looked like they were having a hard time. Moran immediately went to find the village chief and handed him the letter. Then without further ado, he changed into hemp shoes and went into the fields. With his strength and vigor coupled with the fact that he was a cultivator, it wasn't a problem for him to harvest some wheat. After working for half a day, he had already harvested 2 large patches of rice fields. The golden grains were piled up beside the paddy fields. With the sun shining down on them, the surrounding was filled with the fragrance of the grains. The rustling sound of the farmers' sickles echoed in the mountains as they plow. There was a village girl sitting by the ridge. She was leisurely singing a farming song while busily tidying up the grains. The sun setting behind the mountain shines like a red flower, painting the 4 mountains red, red like peonies. A red fan to sing a love song, a hydrangeas to ask my lover. I tug at my lover's belt. When will you come? I don't have time today. I have to chop firewood tomorrow. I will come the day after tomorrow. This soft little tune came out of the peasant girl's lips as the bashful singing unwittingly floated between heaven and earth, landing on the listener's heart. I don't have time today. I have to chop firewood tomorrow. I will come the day after tomorrow. Chu Wanning didn't go to the fields. He instead held a hot water jar and drank water while leaning against a tree. As he listened to the song, his eyes followed the diligent figure in the distance. His heart was beating fast. The water dripped from his throat, but it didn't seem to flow to his stomach but instead, flowed to his chest. What a shameless song. After drinking the water, he coldly commented. He went to return the jar to the village chief. The village chief looked at him hesitantly. Chu Wanning was a bit irritated as he asked, "What's wrong? Cultivation master, aren't you going to the fields?" The old village chief was a straightforward person. Since he was asked, he answered with a quiver in his voice. His white beard trembled and his white eyebrows knitted together. Was the cultivation master here to supervise the work? For the first time, Chu Wanning felt so awkward. Go to the fields. Didn't Xue Zhenyang tell him that he only needed to watch Moran work hard? Did he really have to go to the fields? He didn't know how to. The old village chief looked at him helplessly. Even the young children and old women next to him looked up and glanced at the well-dressed man. Children's words carried no malice, and so the saying went, however. A child with a bun asked crisply, "Granny, Granny, this Daoist brother is dressed with white. How can he go to the fields? His sleeves are so wide." Another child murmured. "His shoes are also very clean." Chu Wanning felt awkward as he felt the words stabbing at his back like pins and needles. After standing in place for a while, he didn't have the face to continue to relax, so he picked up a sickle. He did not remove his shoes when he went into the paddy field, and the wet mud immediately wrapped around his feet. The icy cold water reached his ankles. Chu Wanning tried to take 2 steps, but the slippery feeling made him frown. He then tried to swing the scythe twice, but unfortunately his strokes were obviously wrong as the cut didn't seem to be right. This Daoist brother is so clumsy. Two children rested their cheeks on their hands and laughed at him under the mulberry tree when they saw his actions. Chu Wanning. His face darkened. He was unwilling to be near these people any longer. Chu Wanning struggled to maintain a calm gait in the mud. With his pretty face kept straight, he strode towards the figure in the distance who was busy cutting rice stalks. He wanted to sneak a peek at how Mo Ran was doing it. As the sayings go, one could always learn from others. He would sneakily learn how to do it from Mo Ran. When it came to farming, Mo Ran was obviously much more skilled than Chu Wanning. Under the scorching sun, he bent down, raised the sickle in his hand, cut a bunch of stalks filled with golden grains which fell softly in his arm. He then held the harvested rice with one hand and then threw it into the bamboo basket behind him. He was very serious when he was doing these things. He didn't even notice Chu Wanning's coming. Instead, he diligently lowered his soft eyelashes. There was a faint shadow on his high nose. Beads of sweat dripped down his cheeks. There was a wild aura exuding around him, hot and passionate. Under the sun, his skin was like burning copper. It seemed as if he was sizzling and emitting a dense steam like that of a smelting pool. He was so bright, so brilliant. Chu Wanning was enjoying the scene of him from a distance when he suddenly realized what he was doing. He immediately frowned and shook his head. He muttered something and continued to walk with a straight face. Wasn't he supposed to be sneakily learning from him? He wanted to see how Mo Ran's hand held the sickle. He wanted to learn how the sickle should be held. He wanted to know why the rice stalk was as hard as iron wire in his hands, but in Mo Ran's hands, they became soft like delicate girls who willingly leaned into his arms. Perhaps he was too focused on watching. Chu Wanning didn't notice that a frog under his feet jumped up with a croak and bounced onto the ridge. Chu Wanning was so shocked and hurriedly pulled back his feet to avoid it. However, the paddy field was too slippery and he wasn't paying much attention to it. Thus, the dignified elder Yu Hung actually fell forward because of a valiant and spirited frog. Swoosh! Seeing that his face was about to be buried in the mud, Chu Wanning didn't have time to cast a spell. Instead, he unconsciously pulled at the busy figure in front of him. The maiden's voice flowed about as she sang charmingly, "I tug at my lover's belt. When will you come?" Coincidentally, Chu Wanning suddenly grabbed at Mo Ran's belt and staggered forward a few steps. Then, he fell into a hot, broad chest that was emitting such a masculine aura. A pair of strong arms wrapped around him. End chapter.